So on June 8th of 2015, I put in two individual Facebook posts that coincided with each other. There was a part 1 and a part 2. Basically, let me rewind here. It must have been the middle of 2012. I think it's summer, just beginning of the summer of 2012. I started working at this at a popular club in downtown Edmonton. Basically, a buddy of mine had, got me interested in doing martial arts. And then about a year later, I want to say, not even a year later, I think just towards the end of that year, I didn't work there for very long, but towards the end of it, some stuff had happened, and I don't want to go into too much detail about this because, I think I already talked about the depression stuff in a previous podcast, and what happened in that era isn't really what this episode is about. But basically, I had fallen into a really dark point in my life in which I needed to find some activities to basically bring me back up to a healthy state of mind. So I started getting into martial arts. So after I had dove into that stuff, not too long after all that, was when I had an accident and I got really depressed and stuff. And so, and I had fucked up my left forearm and my right shoulder pretty severely. My center rotator and my front rotator were completely unattached to the joint of my, of my shoulder. And basically, I wasn't like, I couldn't grab anything more than 5 pounds and lift it. I couldn't even like hold it, upright, 45 degree on a 45 degree angle from my body. My arms just would not go that high. Like even on themselves, like they were basically too heavy for themselves, and I couldn't exercise. And I didn't, I got so depressed with everything that was going on that basically within a 3-month span, I went to basically weighing like 136, I think it was, that I weighed when I finally like went to go to a doctor and shit like that. So, thankfully the martial arts side of me got me hooked on the Tai Chi side of things, and it ended up serving me on the long run. Kind of helped me in the meditative application to kind of as a rehabilitation, with all that focus that you kind of need to apply to really enter into that state of mind. It really did force me to help me get clean. So but that's besides the point. So basically, from that point onward, I had completely forgotten about martial arts. I never considered myself healthy enough to hop back in there. It took me forever to put on any sort of healthy weight. It was probably like a solid year before I hit like 155 pounds, and it was crazy. And a lot happened through those 2 years of my life. I made some really drastic changes. At one point I ended up moving to Vancouver. I ended up taking like some trips, around, all of Canada. I ended up, because I was forced to not be too heavy into the, any other activity, I was able to find some psychological comfort in getting back heavily into the music side of things, and just playing, doing shows and stuff like that was definitely served as a big therapy for me. To me, that was, that's where I was gonna stay at. Like, I never once considered, diving back into sports or getting physically, getting a fine-tuned physically for, I had no incentive at that point. So it didn't really matter to me what I was gonna do with myself physically, and it was, but still at the back of my mind, I would always reminisce about how far I could have probably taken it. In my mind, I kept having desires, every time I would sit down with somebody and talk about the things I used to do, in my mind, I would always say, I wonder how boring and how much of a poser I must sound like talking to somebody about something I used to do, because I don't consider any of what I'm doing right now interesting enough to in my own, self-consciousness and complexity, in my mind, I would always think I'd be aware of how uninterested people were in me. And in a way, I'm sure that was unhealthy, but in a way it helped me realize that nobody really gives a shit about, the past and the future, because, you're not talking to them back then, and you're not talking to them, 2 days from now, or, well, rather I should say, you don't know if you're going to be, but your conversation you have with people is here and now, kind of like I'm talking to you guys here and now. Even if this is pre-recorded, you're not listening to this 2 days ago, you're listening to this right now. And so when you have a conversation with someone, it's pretty good to keep that in mind. And so in thinking about that, I was like, even when I was in Moncton, I would think to myself, well, physically, what had been damaged of me, the body parts of mine that were not allowing me to physically move forward with my martial arts, are now healed. And it's basically my own state of mind that's holding me back from pushing myself on it. And I could very easily, maybe not easily, but with my own will, I'm definitely able to do it if I wanted to, and I've always quoted this, and I'm sure I've said this in the past, and I'll continue to say it as much as I can. Ability is determined by the amount of will you have. And all it required for me to get back into martial arts was me saying, well, I want to do it. I'm able to, I'm going to fucking chase this shit. Why am I holding myself back? There's no point to that. There's no reason why I should feel unable. I'm still young. I'm only 24, 25. I'm gonna fucking chase this. Obviously, I'm not one of these kids, that grew up, doing it since I was 8 years old, but I have a passion for it, and I know anything I set my mind to, I'm gonna be successful at it. So I walked into Franco's kickboxing and pancration gym. I love the hell out of my coach. They really, Chris Franco is an absolute beast of in my mind, he's a total legendary fighter, and B, he's one hell of a dedicated coach. Just, he's almost very father-like in that he'll teach you self-pride, and he will teach you manners, and he will teach you, not just the combatant side, but just the mental, condition side of what martial arts is. He's, and all the instructors there are, You know, it's so family oriented, even though, you know, they don't really say the word family a lot, but everything is such a close environment that once you get sucked into the camaraderie and the relationship with all your classmates and all that stuff, it really is, you know, a fun and heartwarming environment. You know, I basically, when I decided I was gonna become a student at the gym, at the school, whatever you want to call it, I always call it school because, you know, one never stops being a student or an apprentice of martial arts. So basically, when on my first day in, I filled out the paperwork. They explained to me how the rubrics work, how the fucking how the classes go, how everything, this and that, you know. And they gave me a shirt that's basically the uniform or whatnot. And I went home and I made a 2 posts. I put the first one up, which I'll read to you guys in a sec. And then, you know, I waited a week for everyone that, you know, that could see it, could read it and you know, get curious. And not just for the sake of hyping up my own news, but also because I wanted people to sit with it for a little bit and, you know, read it, ingest it, and, you know, put their own spin on it, what, you know, so they can, you know, see it and apply it, you know, to themselves. You know, what about them, you know, does this hold true to? I got on my laptop and I started writing this. Here, I'll read it to you right now. It goes, "This week, I want to leave all my friends with a special lesson that I've been learning for a while now. It hasn't been as prevalent as it was this week. People often say talk is cheap. Well, much to everybody's shock, that really only holds true for the first time around. Every time after that, talk is completely worthless. I should clarify. Unless you are a war vet and you're 50 plus years of age, great. If you have the strength to stand on your own 2 feet, then I got some news for you. The people who truly love you don't give a damn what you did in the past. They care only about your here and your now. As far as what you're gonna do, nobody wants to hear about it, because talking about doing something is just pure bullshit." I basically paraphrased a lot of it, but that's it for today. Please stay tuned for part 2. It'll come with some big news. And so that's what the post read. You know, that's what I posted up the first day. And then I waited about a week. You know, I had already gone to a couple of classes, you know, so I had already broken in the shirt. You know, while it was still, you know, it was still kind of new, I went and washed it and I took a picture of it. And, you know, I posted it. And basically, you know, I basically said, you know, the caption read, "Part 2 is very simple. Guess who is back where he is meant to be." Because truthfully, I felt so disconnected. I felt so, you know, I felt like a bullshitter talking about, you know, something that I just wasn't a part of me anymore. And once I made the decision to make it a part of me again, you know, all of a sudden it wasn't bullshit. All of a sudden, you know, people aren't gonna say, well, this guy's an ex or retired martial artist. People are saying, wow, this guy trains, this guy, you know, he's doing something. He hasn't done something. It's not he's going to do something, it's he's doing it. You know, how many people are saying that about you? How many people are looking at you and being like, wow, this guy isn't going to be productive, and he wasn't productive, he's being productive. Look at Arnold. Look at fucking Arnold. You know, fucking 12 or whatever the fuck it was times Mr. Olympia. Freaking massive bodybuilder. How many movies was he not in? And then all of a sudden, you know, when he dove heavily into politics and he started, you know, feeling like he was getting old, he let himself go. Everybody knows all those TMZ pictures fucking poor guy got lambasted, you know, just got criticized because of how much he had let himself go. And I'm sure one day he woke up and he's like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm not old, I'm not disabled, I'm not handicapped, I'm not, you know, held back by some weird force of nature. I haven't been taken over by like fat inducing aliens. I'm still alive, I can still move my limbs, I still have muscles underneath all this flab of skin, and you look at him now, you look at the transformation he's been making over the past 3 years, that he's gotten back into acting and being proactive about his physical being, and all of a sudden he's a fucking jacked up old fucking 50 or 60-year-old motherfucker who's, you know, I bet half the guys that are half his age wouldn't dare go toe-to-toe with the guy. And not just that, he's a fucking legend. He's still a fucking legend. And, you know, he came out of the retirement of being a living legend, you know? He's like, hold up, fuck this shit. I'm not hanging up the gloves. I'm not fucking hanging up the weights. I'm not done fucking lifting this shit up. This is my life. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fucking die doing this shit. I'm not gonna fucking walk past some kid and his dad, and not to quote The Undertaker, but, you know, the day that the dad tells his kid, you know, oh, you should have seen that guy way back when. No, fuck that shit. I'm gonna live that. I'm gonna continue living that stuff. I'll wait for them to say it once I'm in my grave. That's how it's gonna go. That's when people can say that shit. When people are looking at my picture in a museum, that's when they can say stuff like that. And the people who are negative, the trolls on the fucking internet, who have nothing better to do, you know, who instead of improving their own lives and taking the steps to get in the game, instead they take it out on fucking, you know, trying to target people's, you know, mentality and emotions. You know, fuck them. Fuck them. Don't give a shit what those people are saying. You're too good for that. You're too fucking, you know, you're never gonna get anywhere. Those people are never gonna achieve anything because they're too focused on what you're doing and what everybody else is doing. They're never gonna take time to focus in on themselves and earn their own stripes. That's the only way they can live with themselves. You know, there's a really good quote that was said about Michael Jordan a long time ago. I don't know if it was said by him or for him, but basically it goes, the people who once told you that you weren't gonna amount to anything are one day gonna be speaking about how they know you or how they met you and how great you would be someday. And it really is true. It all depends on you, on the decisions you make here and now, and not being content with the things you used to do, and not, you know, not giving a shit about what's gonna be of you in the future. Now, it's good to set a goal. I'm not saying don't set a goal for later on. I'm saying that's not as relevant as the steps that you are taking today. Where your feet are going to be planted in the future does have relevance, but it doesn't weigh as heavy as the step that you were taking today, this second, so that later on, when you are living in the later on, you are standing on the ground, you are stepping in the position, you are, you know, standing firm on a higher state of life, because today, right now, before the next blink of your eyes, you start taking steps forward to where you want to be. On that note, I want to emphasize a little bit about past. I know I said that has irrelevance, and it does. You know why? Because right now, I am 26, soon to be 27, and most people, if not everybody, can make the argument that I started way too late. Well, let me tell you what I think about that. If somebody had that in writing, I would take that piece of paper or whatever the object is, I would fucking wipe my ass clean with it and throw it on the ground because I don't give two flying fucks. You know why I started late? I have my reasons. Of course, one of the reasons is when I was younger, I had the very misfortune of having way too overly religious parents that, you know, even just tying your shoes wrong was gonna earn you a trip to hell. And it was bonkers how much stuff I could not do. I remember when I was in grade 5, you know, I saw the advertisement for Salvation Army that was offering a karate program for kids between the ages of 9 and 11. And I got so excited. And I grabbed the ad from the bulletin board in my school. Actually, I got my teacher, Miss Foster. I remember I asked her how I remember that name. Do not ask me. I got her to get it off the bulletin for me, and I stuffed it into my backpack. And I remember that day because I was supposed to get a permission slip signed to take a field trip or whatnot. And once I got home, I was more excited about showing my mom the advertisement for the, you know, for the karate than I was for the for the field trip. And so when I finally got home, I threw my backpack. I basically, you know, I took my little backpack off my little shoulders. I reached into my backpack, grabbed the paper of the advertisement. You know, I threw my backpack in the corner. I was like, Mom, you know, and all this, of course, in Spanish. I was like, and I was scared because I already had a gut feeling that they were gonna tell me no. And God, please forgive my parents for all this. I went up to my mom and you know how you always have that one parent that you ask first, because if you can convince them, you know, the easier to convince parent, then they can talk to the other one to help convince them. Basically, I showed her, you know, I said, there's an after school program that I really want to get into, and I think it'll be very helpful for me. And it'll be good for me to have an extracurricular activity with how much work I'm doing in school. This is 10 years old, fifth grade, for fuck's sake, you know, of course. But I was trying my damnedest to make a very compelling argument. And so I go, so I really want to join this program. She goes, okay, what's the program? And so I'm like, oh, I was trying really hard to indirectly say it to make it sound less extreme. I go, here, I'll give you a hint. And so I threw this little kick in the air and went, yeah. And she just looked me dead in the eye like she was gonna murder me. And so sure enough, she goes, no. No. She goes, well, you know what? I'll be surprised if your dad says anything about that. So I'll tell you what, if you can talk to him and convince him to let you, then you can do it. I said, okay. So I waited till my dad got home. And I was like, Dad, Mom's got something to tell you. Oh, God. Good times. And meanwhile, at all this, I'm fucking nervous as shit. Basically, she told him what had happened, and he looks at me and goes into this long-ass sermon, mind you, with fucking Bible verses included and teachings and freaking basically an exorcism. Telling me how, you know, doing karate was not just sinful, but it was it was diabolic, and it was just as bad as getting into drugs. It was just as bad as drinking. It was as bad as, you know, you're training yourself to be a sinner, to be a killer, to be, you know, a combatant that which is, you know, it's not self-defense, it's a sin. You're going out to try and kill people. You're trying to teach yourself how to kill people. And that's surely going to land you a spot in hell, and you're never going to find salvation that way. Yada, 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 yada. Oh my God, I never heard the end of it. And so after that point, you know, later on when I was older, when I was an adult, and, you know, I left my parents' house for the first time, I always had the curiosity. And thankfully it wasn't until my coworker and good buddy, John Stelnick, who got me, you know, interested in pursuing a amateur career in martial arts. You know, was I able to start making it a reality. And but it was just, you know, and I think about it, and I think about, like most people, well, fuck, if I would have started when I was that young, then it would have been, maybe, you know, it's extremely possible, if not almost 100% possible, that, you know, it could have been a whole lot easier for me to dive into it if I would have started that young. Granted. But, you know, and I was already well into my 20s when I started wetting my toes with it. So, you know, people could make the argument that you're so fucking old and, you know, it's too late. It's best just to, like, devote yourself to other things by that point. And if I was to feed into that mentality, buddy, that would have just added on to my depression. Like, you know, fuck you. I'm not dead, you know. I try to tell people all the time, there's no such thing as age. There's no such things as living time. There's only such thing as living. There's only such thing as life. Time on earth doesn't exist. Only your life on earth exists. What are you doing with your life? And if time exists, then what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with the energy that you have within yourself? You know, what about you really just needs some tapping into in order to kick you off into it, you know? And so, like, I just want to encourage you, if you've had a desire or an urge to start taking part of you know, an activity in your life, and you feel like it's a little too far-fetched at this point, don't feed into that thought, because, you know, one really good thing that my dad used to quote a lot when he was in the church, you know, in the church business, is that, you know, the way he would sell people, you know, make the pitch of, you know, joining the church to non-believers, so to speak. You know, he would always say, for as long as you have life, you have time. You know, it's never too late, you know, and that's true. But that shouldn't apply to, you could apply it to, you know, your religion if that's what you're into. But you can apply it to whatever it is you're trying to devote your life, your time and energy into. And another buddy of mine who was also a priest, you know, used to say, the human being is never ready for big movements. You know, You know, if you keep saying that you're gonna wait until you're ready for something, well, let me tell you right now, you're never going to do it, because the human being is never ready. You're never ready. You never know what to expect. You have to dive into it, you know, basically expecting anything, because otherwise it's just never going to happen. To be fairly honest, and I'm not just saying that because I want to bash on coworkers of mine or nothing like that, but nowhere is the whole past thing more prevalent than in a construction site. You get all sorts of goofy characters and shit like that, but you know, if you start talking about one trade, like even if you're just a small group of guys hanging out, yada yada yada, like during coffee break or whatnot, nowhere will you get more guys saying, oh yeah bro, I used to do that, I used to make such and such big bucks doing this and this and this and that. And it's all good and all if you want to share something, but it's another thing completely if every single thing that you talk about, you know, whatever the topic is, it turns about how you freaking, you know, the world would not have such and such buildings, and the world would not be the same, the art industry wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for people like me that know how to yada yada, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Like, I know two guys in particularly. One, you know, every time I'm talking with another, you know, a fellow coworker of mine about martial arts or whatever, the conversation always, whenever, and I'm not going to say his name, but the conversation always lands on how he used to fight for such and such companies and was making these big ass bucks and was, you know, knocking people out left and right, and all of a sudden now he can't do it because of a bad ankle. Well, there's so much evidence out there that would prove otherwise, that would lead me to believe that you're fucking full of shit. And then they're bragging about how they're the best work in the company, they've been doing this for years and years and years. Okay, all this is good and all, but hey, your math doesn't add up. You know, when you're talking about you've been fucking doing construction for 15 fucking years, you were fighting for, you know, 10 or 12 years, you're fucking this and this and that, and then you were a truck driver and yada yada yada, and then you're the same age as I am, you're only 28, or you're maybe just a little bit older. Like, somehow the math does not add up, and for one reason or another, it always sounds like you're talking bullshit, because how would anything land back on you curing cancer or doing something that is now, you know, the cause of everybody's redemption? Like, what? Get out of here with that shit. In other cases, I've seen dudes being just straight up posers. There was another guy who, you know, and this is, you know, I don't mean to be rude to the guy, even though it's mind-boggling to me how much people try. You know, we used to call this guy J-Lo, how stupid this guy would make himself appear. It's just being a poser. Like, I guess it would be the equivalent to someone in the 80s saying they were heavy metal and they ended up being a glam rock guy. You know, it's just stop, man. Go sit down. Go lay down before you hurt yourself or somebody hurts you. You know, here's the odd thing. I'm not bashing people on the bus. I used to take myself used to take the bus for the longest time to work because I had to resort to it. Granted, great. And I also understand buying new clothes for work because a lot of times the clothes you're trying to retire isn't cutting it. You need a decent pair of work jeans because, you know, it's a hard industry. You're constantly getting scraped. You need some durable clothes. You need a solid winter jacket, especially in the part of the continent that we live on. Great. But don't fucking go buy yourself some fucking Gucci glasses, some fucking, you know, some Prada fucking belt. Don't go buying True Religion jeans and some fucking, you know, diamond rings with, you know, 24 karat gold fucking chains, and, you know, I would even dare to say that fucking half of it was fake, but, you know, who am I to say? Don't fucking soup yourself up like dressing like fucking Flava Flav and then be on the bus, like asking people for change so you can get on the bus. Like, no, man. Fucking go get your license, fucking sell all that shit, buy yourself a fucking half-ass working car, get yourself to work, and then once you worked a little bit, save up some cash, then fucking buy all that shit back. What's the matter with you, man? And don't go around fucking pretending like you're some fucking hot shot, fucking picking up women left and right. Like, honestly, half the time when the dude's on a construction site talking about chicks, these hot chick that he picked up, fucking half the time, you know, what he really means is he went on Backpage that night, bought himself a hooker, and is probably second guessing whether or not he has syphilis today. You know, like, buddy, no, don't go, don't, just stop, please. Like, guys, we're men. If you really feel that insecure about yourself that you need to fucking, you know, bling yourself up to impress. Plus, you're on a construction site with a bunch of dudes. Yeah, you'll get the occasional hot chick or the engineer or the fucking, you know, building manager that's okay looking, and you know, if they were attracted to you, you know, they would have let you know it. You know, half the time they're already impressed with the fact that you're a construction worker and not some pansy working at a desk somewhere. Come on, man, like, you're a dude. Act like a dude. You're in a dude's industry doing some fucking, you know, manual laborious job. Don't be a wanker. You want to pretend like you just came out of the Hollywood Strip? Fucking go to Hollywood Strip, man. You don't want to wear some fucking... You want to fucking grow your hair out, fucking get some highlights and get some fucking leopard skin fucking leggings and pull the whole 9 yards and go do it. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but, you know, fuck that shit. No, man, don't be a poser. Fuck, you know, might as well get yourself a fucking bedazzled grill to put in your mouth, and throw some pink, draw some pink fluffy handcuffs on your fucking heart out. Don't do that shit, man. I know you're trying to act like you have money, but come on, man. Like, we all know the real deal. And, and I guess getting back to what I was saying, since I completely digressed, but fuck, man. So you really need to hear it out there. Stop talking about how you used to do all this shit. Stop talking about how you fucking used to make all these big bucks, because I don't give a shit about that. Hell, I don't even give a shit about your plans. Your wife does. You can tell her. Your kids do. Go ahead and tell them. You probably do. So go ahead and fucking tell yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself all that stuff. I'm sure it'll be very inspirational and it'll help you fucking gain some momentum for yourself. But don't fucking go bragging about what you're gonna do or what you've done. Fucking, and nobody gives a shit. Nobody wants to hear any of that. You want to fucking impress people? Start doing. Start showing that you're not about the bullshit, that you're not about the talk, you're about to walk. You're about the walk, you're about the doing, you're about the here and fucking now. So go fucking do it. Stop listening to this. Go do it, motherfucker. Alright. This message was brought to you by the creators of, and I can't even say anything, because then this whole fucking thing is gonna get shut down for placing paid for product placement. So, you know what? Alacran out.